Hey Trinity, today we're in Psalm 86. Incline your ear, O Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and needy. Preserve my life, for I am godly. Save your servant who trusts in you. You are my God. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for to you do I cry all the day. Gladden the soul of your servant, for to you, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. For you, O Lord, are good and forgiving, abounding in steadfast love to all who call upon you. Give ear, O Lord, to my prayer. Listen to my plea for grace. In the day of my trouble I call upon you, for you answer me. There is none like you among the gods, O Lord, nor are there any works like yours. All the nations you have made shall come and worship before you, O Lord, and shall glorify your name. For you are great and do wondrous things. You alone are God. Teach me your way, O Lord, that I may walk in your truth. Unite my heart to fear your name. I give thanks to you, O Lord my God, with my whole heart, and I will glorify your name forever. For great is your steadfast love toward me, and you have delivered my soul from the depths of Sheol. O God, insolent men have risen up against me. A band of ruthless men seeks my life, and they do not set you before them. But you, O Lord, are a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. Turn to me and be gracious to me. Give your strength to your servant and save the son of your maidservant. Show me a sign of your favor, that those who hate me may see and be put to shame, because you, Lord, have helped me and comforted me. I want us to see two things in this psalm, two things that just leapt off the page. First, he prays in verse 4. He asks specifically that God would gladden his soul. And he doesn't do so first on the basis of God changing his circumstances. He actually says, I lift up my soul to you. I pray, oh God, that you would transform what I feel. Bring me gladness where right now I feel sadness or despair. One of the gains of our day is that we've kind of reached this point as a culture where we're more and more aware of our own emotional life. And to one degree, that's a really, really good thing. I think a lot of people have lived a lot of portion of their life completely oblivious to what they feel, whether they're glad or sad or angry. And our culture has actually caused us in some ways to stop and just acknowledge to gain a knowledge of actually what are you feeling inside? Like, how are you reacting to the world around you, and what do you actually feel? Now, the downside of our culture is it actually stops there. It stops there and kind of validates whatever feelings we may have, and then we're supposed to live our life in light of whatever those emotions are. The Bible doesn't stop there. The psalmist all over the place is acknowledging the emotions he feels. He's setting those before God, and I find it stunning here that the psalmist invites us, we're actually commanded by God in this text, to actually lift up our souls to God and ask him to transform not just what we do, and not just what we think, but actually that he himself would shape and transform what we feel. I mean, think about this all over the Bible. Like, the Bible commands our emotions all over the place. It tells us, don't be anxious. The most stated commandment in all of Scripture is don't be afraid, don't be fearful, don't be anxious. Like, if emotions are just kind of the state we find ourselves in, then we find ourselves anxious a lot. I don't know about you, but I find myself anxious a lot. What a helpless position to be in, just to be stuck there and having to live in light of that anxiety. That's not what the Bible sets before us, and not what this psalm sets before us. The psalmist instructs us how to stand before God, to lift up our souls to God, and ask him to realign, again, not just what we think, not just what we do, but actually what we feel. There's a right way to feel in this world, and there's a wrong way to feel in this world. And God, just in the same way that our moral behaviors have ramifications, and we need God to come and sanctify those so that we behave differently, we obey God, we do all the things that God commands, our feelings, our emotions actually need sanctifying as well. And we need God in his mercy and through the gospel to come and actually gladden our hearts when they should be glad. But then the second thing I want you to see is how he sets out to do that. In verses 8 through 13, he fixes his attention on two things. One, the greatness and the glory and the majesty of God, that all the nations of the earth will bow before him. Here is not a focus on himself or, again, the transformation of his circumstances. Here he lifts his gaze from his own sadness, his own brokenheartedness, from the emotions that seem to be plaguing him. He lifts his eyes to see and behold a God who is majestic and holy and powerful, that all the nations will bow before him. One of the ways we lift our souls, one of the ways that we begin to gain a heart of gladness, an emotional orientation that's fitting to this world and to our lives and to the God who rules over it, is to lift our attention away from our circumstances, away from the particularities of what we feel in here, and to lift our eyes up to behold God, to see him as he is, as powerful and majestic and glorious and holy. The second thing I want to point out is at the end of that, in verse 13, he gives testimony to the fact that he knows of God's covenant love for him. That God has bound himself to him, that he is that God has steadfast or covenant love towards me. And so the first thing he says is, behold the greatness and the grandeur of God. That'll lift my soul. And second, I want to meditate on and remind myself of, and even set before God again, the testimony of his steadfast love for me. That lifts the soul. That gladdens the heart.